Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video. And tonight, guys, we end off the Mission Impossible review marathon with the second to last installment in the Mission Impossible franchise / saga. That's right. That, of course, being from 2023, Dead Reckoning, Part 1. Yes. The second to last installment, and, yeah. Part 1, Dead Reckoning. And, it's interesting and funny that, the last Mission Impossible film, as I recall, it was originally gonna be Part 2, in the title, Dead Reckoning Part 2, as I recall, but now being called Final Reckoning, but, But yeah, just overall, Part 1, and the first things I have to say about it. Well, not a disappointment. This being the second to last installment, and this being the first part of where the Mission Impossible franchise wraps up, and, yeah. It's amazing. It really is. It's a shame because, my dad and I, in which, in the last review, because us having seen Fallout, missed our shot at seeing, the second to last installment, but, stuff like that happens. But, overall, Dead Reckoning Part 1, and now that I've finally seen it, excellent. It really is. It's an excellent second to last installment, and what goes down in the second to last installment, Part 1, with its plot line, and man, this is probably by far the most intense, impossible mission that the IMF team has ever come face to face with, whom they're against, and what they're doing. The fact that, this one particular item, well, it's in two pieces. This key that can control this mysterious, powerful enemy that's something AI, and the entire government after this. And the IMF team, Ethan and his troops, at their lives at stake. And, if they got their hands on it, well, they'd be taken down and such. The main new villains that step in to the second to last installment of Mission Impossible, good new characters that step in. One returning familiar face whom we haven't seen since the first installment, literally. And just, the key locations, the suspenseful stuff. Oh, yeah. There's a lot in this one. And, the unfortunate situations and a terrible loss in the team. Yeah, until I get there. And just the climax and just what more do I have to say? Dead Reckoning, Part 1, not a disappointment for me. I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure the same goes for you who have seen Part 1, and especially if anybody, having done a rewatch of this right before, but yeah. Just overall, Mission Impossible, the 7th / second to last installment in the franchise. Yeah, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, Part 1, excellent. It's fantastic. Yeah, what more do I have to say? Alright, so, with the first things I've had to say out of the way, now, as always, read the description / the story. Ethan Hunt and the IMF team must track down a terrifying new weapon that threatens all of humanity if it falls into the wrong hands. With control of the future and the fate of the world at stake, a deadly race around the globe begins. Confronted by a mysterious, all-powerful enemy, Ethan is forced to consider that nothing can matter more than the mission, not even the lives of those he cares about most. Alright, so, getting into the film itself. So, well, of course, yet another great way to start this off. In fact, I was wondering, when are we going to get to the opening credits? Because, at a certain point, you're wondering, okay, we've got something suspenseful, and, what a way to start off, but, okay, so, well, starting off where we see a Russian submarine known as the Sevastopol. I think, yeah, I pronounced that right. But yeah, throughout my review, I'm just going to refer to it as the submarine, because that's what it is. What's the point of, like, trying to remember to pronounce? You get my point. But anyway, so yeah, this submarine that contains and is holding something very, very powerful. And yeah, it is equipped with a sophisticated AI called the Entity. Yeah, a very powerful, technology kind of thing. And the only way to access it is a key, and it's split in two pieces. So they have this AI technology thing in their hands, and it's being transferred, as I recall. Yeah, and it also, yeah, and well, at one point, the submarine crew, and by the way, because some of them, like, yeah, the captain, being played by Marcin Dorosineksy, if I'm saying that right. There's also the executive officer, played by Ivan Ivashkin, if I'm saying that right. The deck officer, played by Zachary Barov. Weapons officer, played by Adrian Bojat, if I'm saying that right. And yeah, but just to name some of the crew members of the submarine. So at one point they detect an incoming submarine, U.S. Virginia submarine, and by launching a torpedo of theirs, but apparently the U.S. submarine, along with their torpedo, disappears, literally. And then out of nowhere, the torpedo comes back on their radar, and it's coming straight towards them. So if it's not obvious that, this has to do something with what they're carrying, this AI device. And yeah, sure enough, they don't stand a chance, and it's too late for them to, evacuate and to, avoid their own missile that was coming straight towards them. Yeah, and eventually the submarine gets destroyed. Not entirely, but yeah. And the crew, they die, and not to mention that there's some ice blocking their bodies, in the ocean. And a little later, those two pieces, like, around their necks, like, they go missing. And eventually, someone gets a hold of one of those two pieces. And yeah, and that's when Ethan, is told by this. And, well, like, there's one moment where he meets with this new IMF crew member, welcoming him into the IMF business, India Zulu 254, played by Alex James Phelps, who was a pizza delivery guy. But yeah, when delivering a pizza, he met with Ethan, and just, yeah, the conversation that he has with this new member, just, yeah. And, well, of course, it's not food or pizza anything, because there's another message left for Ethan on what he's going to get himself into this time. So, whom gives Ethan the details on this new mission that Ethan, if he chooses to accept, yeah, what it is? And, well, this has to do with the two pieces of the key to the AI device. And just so happens that whom is talking to Ethan and giving him the details on this is Kittredge. Yes, Kittredge returns since the first Mission Impossible film. Where the heck has he been all this time? Well, I mean, for one thing, and as the movie establishes, he did end up becoming a CIA director. So, obviously, at some point, he stepped down from IMF, and sometime later, he transferred over to CIA. So, yeah. And Kittredge, once again, being played by Henry Czerny. Yeah. So, yeah. He lays out the details on the two pieces of the key, and also mentioning that Elsa Faust is going rogue and has one of the pieces in her possessions. Kittredge also mentions to Ethan that someone else is linked with this mission, and that being this girl whom we only see through flashbacks, and apparently she was responsible for why Ethan chose to join IMF. And that being this girl named Marie, being played by Mirella Garaja, if I'm even saying her full name right, mainly her last name, but again, you know me sometimes. And again, should Ethan choose to accept the mission, and yeah, what is at stake with this mission and with these two pieces, yeah. And when more further details are given, and, you know, what Ethan learns, and when he would bring this up to, say, two of his team members. But yeah, then at one point, Ethan manages to locate Faust, who's hiding in this desert, and just so happens that, yeah, Faust is, well, not only has she gone rogue, but she's also labeled wanted, and there's a price put on her, a bounty, and yeah, these hunters trying to find Faust, but, you know, Ethan beating them to her, and when, you know, he hides from them a little, but then when he's seen by them, they try to shoot him down, but yeah, ultimately, when he catches up to Faust and they reunite, well, we presumably that, you know, she got shot down, because a bit of a gun/fist fight between, like, say, Ethan, Faust, you know, towards the hunters, and yeah, and then at one point we see her on the ground, and she's presumed dead, or is she? And so then, when we finally see Kittredge on screen, and again, it's great to see him after all these years, and, well, you know, he's, you know, technically still the same old Kittredge, like in the first one, and how he can be at times a lot with Ethan, you know what I mean? Just, yeah, but, Kittredge, he meets with these, group of, various intelligent, agencies, sorry, referred to as the Community, yeah, and which happens to be led by Director Delaner, yeah, and I completely forgot that, he was in this, yeah. Director Delaner, being played by good old Cary Elwes, yes, aka Wesley from Princess Bride, and he was in the first Twister film. He was in the Knuckles miniseries. He's done a lot more. He's a great actor, yeah. And hey, he was no disappointment having been a part of the Mission Impossible franchise. I mean, for just one movie, but yeah. But, you know, it's Cary Elwes. He's great in anything. So even if it's like a not a big role or something, you get my point. Just, yeah. Anyways. So, and the other members of the Community, as it's called, well, we have the NRO, played by Charles Parnell, NSA, played by good old Mark Gatiss, DIA, played by Indira Varma, and JSOC, played by Rob Delaney. Yeah, I've seen him before, and yeah, great actor as well. And I completely forgot, too, he makes a brief appearance in one of these films. So, basically, and to keep it short and to speed things up some, because they're talking about what came from the Russian submarine, which of course being this AI device, which being referred to as the Entity. And with the conversations and dialogue that they all have, and Kittredge explaining about the Entity, most notably, it's become very intelligent, advancing on its own, being very smart, and it's a big threat. It really is, and the fact that, you know, it could get into any device or system around the world. Seriously. And with what Kittredge explains, and even when he brings up IMF, which apparently the director did not know at all the existence of IMF until now. And even some of the members of the Community were not wanting Kittredge to bring it up. But yeah, overall he does bring it up. And by the way, because, yeah, the masked, the Adjundants, am I saying that right? Yeah, but you know, yeah, three of them being played by Brian Law and Lincoln Conway, but the one that's credited as masked, yeah, there's something about one of the three that's kind of off. And the masked one being played by Marcelo Walton. As the dialogue continues, and with what Kittredge says about the Entity, and with the two pieces of the key that can control the Entity, yeah. And, well, the masked adjutant, if I might be mispronouncing it, but I think you know what I am talking about. Yeah, so throwing some gas and knocking everyone out unconsciously. Thankfully, he lended a gas mask to Kittredge, and is it not obvious where this is going? Yeah, should have seen it coming. Ripping off the mask, and it's Ethan. Yeah. And the conversations that Ethan and Kittredge have, and, well, you know, Kittredge, warning Ethan about the whole thing of the entity and finding those two pieces, just, yeah, and the fact that Ethan will be hunted down for this, and, yeah, so, if it's not obvious. Hasn't Ethan had enough being chased down and such and being framed? Good lord. But, yeah, that's how it is in the franchise a lot of times. But anyways, so yeah, now Ethan, accepting that, he has to go and find the two pieces of the key, and of course, the whole thing with the entity. Yeah, it's up to Ethan. And, well, Ethan making a run for it, putting on a different disguised mask that's Kittredge. And, how are you going to get out? Of course, because, yeah, he should have seen it coming. And finally, we get the opening credits. It took, 20 to 29 minutes for the opening credits to arrive? Yeah, and the title and the cast, that. It was a great way for the opening credits to, for how it was done in the second to last installment. And of course, having the Mission Impossible theme play, yeah, great way for how the opening credits were done. And yep, then a little later, Ethan, he would meet up with two of his big-time team members, Luther, once again, Vin Rams, and Benji, once again, Simon Pegg. And can't forget to mention, Ethan, once again, Tom Cruise. Yeah. So, basically, yeah, when talking to, and by the way, because Ethan does have the second piece, yeah, actually, and, well, Ethan giving them all the details, and, well, I mean, they figured out, too, that, their lives are at stake, and they will be hunted down by the entire government, and, because, the whole government going after the key, which is split in two pieces, and yeah, and they're risking to do this, and, there's no doubt that, they will succeed, as they always have in these films, that they will succeed, even though that this mission is beyond any other mission that they've done, and that's, well, impossible. And how Ethan got one of the pieces of the key, the two pieces, well, because a flashback we see where, back at the desert, Faust, she didn't get killed, and she did lend one of the pieces that she had to Ethan, and yeah, Ethan did show it to, Kittredge, and yeah, and from there on. So, yeah, again, when meeting with Luther and Benji, and yeah, their lives are at stake for this, but they're willing to do so, then it's brought up that there will be a buyer wanting to take the pieces of the key and such. And yeah, the entire sequence at this airport, and also, this has to do with, Amsterdam, traveling to Amsterdam, from Amsterdam, Venice, and yeah. So, yeah, them roaming around the airport, and not to mention that, of course, yeah, we have someone on Ethan's tail trying to bring him in, and, well, that being Jasper? Yeah, I believe, yeah, I got the name right. Yeah, his first name, and, yes, Briggs. Yeah, his last name, Jasper Briggs, being played by Shea Wingham, if I'm saying his last name right. And we also have Degas, however that name is pronounced, but yeah, being played by Greg Tarzan Davis. Interesting middle name. The fact that his middle name is Tarzan. So yeah, they come in this airport going after Ethan, and we have those on monitors trying to track down Ethan, identifying his face, and somehow, thanks to Luther and Benji, most notably Luther, they managed to, trick those that are going after Ethan into thinking that he's this person, and so on, putting his face on other people's faces, and yeah, and thus Ethan making his way and avoiding Briggs and the others, and eventually, yeah, because Ethan locates the buyer for one of the two pieces of the keys, but the buyer bumped into this woman who, well, turns out that now, she has the key, she has the one piece of the key, and that being Grace, being played by good old Hayley Atwell, aka Agent Carter from Marvel. Yes. Nice to see her being a part of the Mission Impossible franchise, and she was no disappointment, yeah, because this is Hayley Atwell we're talking about. She was a perfect fit to the Mission Impossible family, just, yeah. So Ethan now has to go after her, and eventually he does. Meanwhile, the buyer gets shot by this one woman whom obviously is on the bad side, bad guys, named Paris. Hiding a gun, it's being covered by newspapers shooting the buyer, and Paris being played by good old Poem Clementeff, if I'm saying her last name right, aka Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy, another cast member from the MCU being in the Mission Impossible franchise. Yeah. And of course, Poem, no disappointment either. She was great, yeah. But man, what happens to her character and towards the end of the film, yeah, until I get there. But anyway, so yeah, again, Ethan catching up to Grace, and she has the one piece of the key. Meanwhile, Luther and Benji discover something, that there's a bomb in a briefcase that will board the plane that Ethan's going to board on, and they don't want Ethan to know about this quite yet, because the situation Ethan's in right now, and now that he's with the woman who, pickpocketed one of the pieces of the keys. So it's up to Benji to go down to get the case where the bomb is, and eventually he does, but this bomb, oh boy, because basically this bomb gives out riddles and questions, and it knows Benji's name. So they're kind of at stake right now, and with this bomb, and at any point, and if they mess up, if Benji messes up and can't deactivate the bomb, everyone will die in the airport. So Benji has to solve the riddles, and with the help of Luther, even when Luther secretly asks Ethan a question about one of the riddles, and even when, Grace answers for Ethan, unbeknownst to both of them, but eventually they manage to deactivate the bomb, but there's nothing in the bomb, and what was discovered in the bomb, but this obviously, this is the works of the entity. Not to mention that, at a certain point, Luther and Benji, they lose control of the devices, the laptops, and and even these special glasses that Ethan was wearing, the camera to it and identifying the person and such, and even where a few times he loses Grace in the airport, she flees, even at one point taking the one piece of the key that he did have briefly, and then at one point he notices someone while still wearing the shades and thinking that it's like a hallucination or something, because when he takes them off he disappears. Who was that guy? And apparently this is someone that Ethan knows very well, and only for it to get more worse, where Ethan is finally spotted by those agents, Briggs and Degas, and a chase through the airport, and ultimately where, Ethan does finally gets away from Briggs and the others, and trying to catch up to Grace, and this of course would lead to where they would find themselves in Venice. And also, can't forget to mention that Ethan, before, trying to go after Grace, and, he tells Benji and Luther to abort the mission. The mission is terminated. Just get out of there. So eventually, when Grace, she makes her way to Venice, well, she's been arrested because she's done a lot of thieving all around the world and with fake names, IDs, and such. But thankfully, Hope steps in for her when apparently her lawyer is present and turns out to be Ethan. Of course, yeah. So Ethan pretends to be Grace's lawyer and to bail her out. And he does find out that Grace was hired by an anonymous bad guy, third party, to obtain one of the two pieces of the key. And yeah, eventually, because Ethan still helping Grace to get out of there, knocking down some of the security and making their way out, but Grace still trying to escape from Ethan, which she does so, and, well, yeah. This leads to where she steals a police car, then Ethan steals a police bike, and yeah, this entire chase sequence, it's amazing, crazy, but awesome at the same time. Awesome crazy. So yeah, because from one vehicle to the next, and when, Ethan finally catches up to Grace, only to have, once again, Jasper Briggs and his guys come in, still trying to bring in Ethan, but Paris stepping in, there's some gunfire, and Jasper, he technically does let Ethan off the hook for once, and, well, Ethan has both him and Grace handcuffed so she can stick with him. Them trying to drive from one vehicle to the next while being handcuffed. It's quite funny and intense at the same time. Even when they get one vehicle that, with the access of IMF, and it's this tiny yellow van, golly, out of all of them, and we saw some pretty cool cars, that's the one they end up with. But they make some good progress with it. But still, to have some of the police in Venice, along with Paris, chasing after them, and not to mention that Paris is in this, giant, big tank vehicle, almost, steel van, just making their way through the town of Venice, driving down the stairs and tumbling a good chunk of times, even Paris as well, and having trouble trying to get her vehicle started. Just, golly. What more do I have to say? That whole car chase sequence was crazy, and only for it to end when eventually Ethan and Grace find their way down in a train tunnel, and Grace eventually, yet again, escapes from Ethan, and now he's handcuffed. He's still handcuffed, the only one that's handcuffed, and with the wheel of the car, and not to mention that there's an incoming train, but thankfully, and should have seen it coming, that, Ethan does escape. Still handcuffed, but holding on to the wheel. And finally, eventually, yes, Benji and Luther, they show up in Venice, they pick up Ethan, and along with Luther and Benji, Faust, Elsa Faust is with them. Good to see her with them. And also, because she lended one of the two pieces of the key to the entity to Ethan, he established to her that she has to play dead, be labeled as, her being killed and such. Nobody can know that she's alive, so, But at the same time, of course, her still helping out, the three guys, and even though, because, not being a part of the IMF, still, a friend in need, because, a partnership and such because of the British intelligence and IMF. You get what I'm saying, just, so a member from the British intelligence helping out those in the IMF. Just, no harm done to that. So, when all four of them are reunited, they're safe and sound, for now, they talk more about, say, the entity and this one guy whom Ethan saw at one point at the airport, and he recognized him. Well, that's a man by the name of Gabriel, and he is heavily linked to the entity. I guess you could say, and best way for me to put it is, Gabriel is, a servant to the entity, I guess you can say, because, like I said earlier, and as the movie established earlier, that the entity became a mind of its own, gaining a personality, knowledge, and such, and now has Gabriel working alongside with it. You know what I mean? And yeah, Ethan, knowing Gabriel and the links with him having become a part of IMF and the woman that he knew, Marie, but also Elsa, she knows Gabriel as well. And they happen to know when Gabriel will be present again at this party in Venice that will be hosted by Alana. Yeah, that's her real name, but she most notably goes by the White Widow. And yeah, that is someone that Gabriel knows. And the White Widow being played by the talented Vanessa Kirby. Yes, aka the Invisible Woman, Sue Storm. But she's done a lot more than that, of course. But yeah, so the talk that they have and about the entity, the party that Gabriel is going to attend to, and their best chance to get in and to, confront Gabriel and such, and yeah, what they're specifically planning to do. Not to mention that, more than likely, yes, Grace will be there as well. So, at the party, the entire sequence at this party in Venice, hosted by the White Widow, well, Grace being there, and she meets with Gabriel, and Gabriel being played by Isai Morales, if I'm saying his full name right. I know him best from one of my top favorite movies, La Bamba. He portrayed Richie Valens' brother, Bobby. Yes, that's him. And also, I had forgotten at times that, yeah, he was one of the original voices of Dora the Explorer's dad. Yeah, but he's done a lot more than that, and he's a great actor, and again, no disappointment, not another disappointment in this Mission Impossible film. And the fact that he is playing one of the main antagonists and how his character is heavily linked with the entity, as I explained. Just amazing. Yeah. And yes, and eventually Ethan and Elsa, they find Grace as well. They meet face-to-face with Gabriel and the White Widow. And turns out that, yeah, the White Widow, of course, being aware of the entity and her having one of the pieces of the key, and not to mention that she was responsible for hiring Grace to get one of those two pieces. And we find out more about the entity. It knows the future, what's going to happen in the future, the fates of some people, and so on, what is to come. And apparently, and according to Gabriel, because again, how much he is linked with the entity, and also the fact that they definitely need those two pieces of the key and, of course, to get into the entity, Gabriel explains, and to speed things up some, because, yeah, like I said, the entity knowing about what is to come in the future, and if anyone is to die and such, their fates. Well, Gabriel explaining that either Elsa or Grace will die for what is going to come very shortly this evening. And yeah, because, one of them will die after the key is delivered, and yeah, because at one point, yeah, Ethan, he does convince the White Widow, tries to, I should say, not to join forces with the dark side, Gabriel and so on, but she has no choice. And it is mentioned that she will, by, the next day, make her way to the Orient Express to meet with whom she's going to bring the two pieces of the key to. Yeah, another buyer and such, in exchange, yeah. Eventually, yeah, our characters, they escape from the party, and when taking down some of the bad guys, then the sequence where our characters split, and, from Ethan, Grace, and Elsa, and, some fighting here and there, and, yeah, from Grace and Ethan taking on some of the bad guys, even Paris, who, yeah, we learned that, yeah, she's working alongside with Gabriel. At one point, she takes on Ethan, but eventually, yeah, Ethan ends up taking down / defeating Paris, but he spares her life. There had to be a good reason for, yeah, why he left her, being wounded, but yeah, he spared her life. And boy, what happens very later on in the movie. Like I said, for the character of Paris and what is to come for her, oh yeah. And Gabriel, well, he's at a bridge, and, expecting to see Elsa, but instead seeing Grace. And Grace, she tries to take down Gabriel, with a knife, and the fighting between them, and ultimately, yeah, because Gabriel takes down Grace. Thankfully, she doesn't get killed, because if it's not obvious, yeah, one of them is to be killed by Gabriel, and sure enough, Elsa steps in and tries to take on Gabriel, and yeah, but sadly, like Grace, she loses to Gabriel. He kills her. Oh. Did we not see that coming? Did we wish we didn't see that coming? That was heartbreaking right there. The death of Elsa Faust. Like, she was such a great character ever since she made her debut in Rogue Nation, and then, yeah. But hey, it's one of those things in some films, franchises, whatever, but yeah. So yeah, ultimately Gabriel wins, taking down / murdering Elsa. Ethan was too late to catch up and to help Elsa, and yeah, when he arrives, he's devastated by the loss of Elsa, and yeah, things are really at stake. But thankfully, yeah, because Grace is okay, and she's brought in by Ethan, Luther, and Benji. Proper introductions, and Grace feels awful / responsible for the loss of Elsa. But Luther, good on Luther, he makes it very clear to Grace that it's not her fault. And, well, the fact that, yeah, Luther has a point. Elsa saved Grace's life. And, well, Grace, seems as though technically, is now joining the band. Ethan and his team members. Yeah, nice to see. So now she's in a part of this, and, well, what they're gonna do next. I mean, they have to proceed, of course, despite, the sad loss of Elsa. They know what they've got to do. Proceed and to take down the bad guys, and with the 2 pieces of the key, with the entity, yeah, they're not stopping there, of course. And by the way, with Ethan having, because that, like, where he was fighting against Paris and trying to find his way to catch up to, Elsa and Grace, well, Benji was helping out Ethan at one point, which way he had to go, but the entity hacked their systems and pretending to be Benji. And that's where, yeah, what would happen next, where, yeah, Ethan was too late. Yeah. But anyways, so just had to throw that out. I almost forgot to mention it, because, yeah, that was another, oh my god, So now they lay out some plans on what they're going to do next, and, well, because as was mentioned that the White Widow will board the Orient Express, and, they have to, break down, Luther has to break down traces of the entity from his hard drive. That was mentioned. But also, Luther brings up to Ethan and makes a good point to him that he can't kill Gabriel, because Gabriel, him being heavily linked with the entity, and if Gabriel is dead, then not much hope for them to, of course, take down the entity and so on. What Luther specifically states to Ethan. So, yeah, so Ethan can't kill Gabriel. As much as he wants to, he can't. It's one of those situations. So, to speed things up still some, well, them laying out plans on how they're going to get into the Orient Express. Well, for one thing, they will pose as the White Widow and one of her henchmen, which of course being Zola, and of course using those disguised masks, yeah. And was it not obvious, because we can see them putting on the masks and, well, them knocking Zola and the White Widow unconscious, but yeah. that actually didn't happen, because then Grace is like, wait a second, just, yeah. But, I mean, they're still gonna do it, even though Grace feels that this is, like, crazy to do and such, but yeah, it's the only way to get on the Orient Express and pose as them and whom it is they're going to meet with, just, yeah. So, luckily, like, yeah, one of the first two masks that are made, which being the White Widow, it's made, but unfortunately, and yeah, it's obvious it's the entity's doing. The gadgetry making disguise masks, it breaks. It doesn't finish the mask that Ethan will wear, posing as Zola. So, what now? Well, Ethan insists that Grace will still board on the Orient Express as the Widow, and the White Widow. But he promises that he will make his way to the Orient Express, and he will protect Grace, no matter what. So, yeah, eventually, that's what they do. And Grace, finding herself on board the Orient Express, meanwhile, Ethan, driving on a motorcycle, making his way and trying to get to the exact coordinates / destination where he'll catch up to the Orient Express and board on it. So, yeah, again, eventually they make their way to the Orient Express, where, yeah, Grace boards and poses as Ilana, knocking her out unconscious. And even when at one point a little later, Ilana woke up, but then she passed out again, because, yeah, what was put into her to knock her out, it wasn't finished on her. Then, Gabriel and Paris, well, obviously, yeah, they too have made their way to the Orient Express. They kill the conductor, like literally hanging him, and they speed up the train because, yeah, and where the train's gonna end up to a little later, Then at one point, Gabriel and Paris, they meet with Delaner, yes, the director of the Community, which, is it not obvious already in why he's present? He's a flat-out traitor, yeah. And apparently, because he happens to know a thing or two about the entity, and explaining to Gabriel and Paris about the loss of the submarine, and that the submarine using the entity to test their abilities, and apparently it was Delaner who ordered the entity to destroy the submarine, and Delaner happens to know where the submarine is located, and and with what he says to Gabriel, but should have seen it coming where, yeah, Gabriel, he flat out killed Delaner, like slicing him and such. In fact, yeah, Delaner, he wanted to join an alliance with Gabriel and Paris, but yeah, that didn't work. Not to mention, Gabriel discovers, and yeah, because with what the entity knows in the future of what is to come, that Paris will end up betraying Gabriel, and thus Gabriel tries to kill Paris. He manages to, kind of, well, just wounding her, but yeah, just leaving her there wounded while, yeah, Gabriel proceeded. So, jeez. Yeah, I mean, was that not expected? Where, yeah, Paris would end up redeeming herself and, well, betraying Gabriel. Gabriel saw it coming, and thanks to the entity, and also with the help of Delaner, but yeah. But anyway, so, for Grace, now posing as Ilana, aka the White Widow, she meets with whom is going to buy and in exchange, the two pieces of the key to the entity. It's Kittredge. Why? Why is he there? Like, for one thing, that's not a good sign, right? Because did it never seem obvious, even like, say, in the first Mission Impossible film, that it looked like Kittredge could be someone that would be kind of an asshole and a traitor, kind of? You get what I'm saying? Just, yeah. I guess, yeah, that's what we suspect at first towards Kittredge, and yeah, with him being the one, and where Grace, posing as Ilana, will exchange the two pieces of the key, and even when, yeah, putting those two pieces together, and of course, in exchange, and by giving it to him, just, yeah. Also, you know, the fact that Grace is trying her best to be in character and pose as Ilana, and not having either Zola or Kittredge, any of them, realizing that it's not actually the White Widow. So, yeah, with what's going on with, yeah, Grace pretending to be the White Widow, exchanging the two key pieces, like, yeah, in exchange for money, but yeah, at a certain point, Grace feels that she's selling her soul, and doesn't comply with the money thing and such. Not to mention that Grace was brought up, and Grace pretending to be the White Widow and asking Kittredge to not have any harm come towards Grace. Yeah, with what she specifically says to Kittredge. Eventually, yeah, with the exchange going pretty well, even though, yeah, she declined the money thing. She once again managed to get the key, now the two pieces together, yeah, the full-blown key, like pickpocketing Kittredge pickpocketing once again, this time on Kittredge. Then, of course, eventually, the Ilana, she regains consciousness and shows up, and yeah, Kittredge and Zola quickly realizing that, yeah, that's the actual White Widow. And also, not to mention that Jasper and his right-hand agent, yeah, they're there as well, still trying to go after Ethan, and they're a bit surprised to see Kittredge be on the Orient Express. And yeah, they ask him why, and that's, you don't know that I'm on here, just, yeah, and telling them to go after Grace, and yeah, not to mention that Grace, well, she didn't have time to change wardrobe, because the wardrobe that Grace was in, disguised as Ilana, was a gray jacket and such. Well, yeah, the Ilana was in white getup, because, yeah, being referred to as the White Widow. Meanwhile, and yeah, this was a great moment here, where Ethan, still trying to catch up to the Orient Express, and eventually, and because, yeah, he's in contact with only Benji. Benji's the only one that's there helping out Ethan and telling him where to go. Yeah, this time it's the Benji helping him out where to go. And, well, eventually Ethan finds himself right where there's a cliff, a ledge and such, and, yeah, this is not a good sign for Ethan, and there's a lot of edges, like, down below the cliff, but yeah, eventually, Ethan, he figures it out, even with, Benji, the struggle he's going through, and I don't blame, who can blame him, because the situation that they're in, this is a matter of life and death, and so on. Ethan, it's all figured out. Ethan, using the edge of the cliff as a ramp, and getting a good speed on his bike, and eventually, yeah, not to mention that there's a parachute attached to him, riding on the motorcycle, flying, and thus, yeah, when he gets near, like, a good mileage of, where to activate the parachute, yeah, he ignites it. And, yeah, that stunt, yet another crazy stunt that Tom Cruise pulled in this Mission Impossible film, excellent. Just excellent, yeah. Oh, man, I tell you, because, yeah, in the later Mission Impossible films, especially for Rogue Nation, from there on, just, yeah, these crazy epic stunts that Tom Cruise pulled off, are just fantastic. But, yeah, eventually, Ethan does catch up and makes his way on board the Orient Express. And coming back to Grace, because, no, it's Gabriel's goons that go after Grace. My bad, yeah. Because, I mean, yeah, eventually we see Jasper and the other agent on board the Orient Express, still trying to go after Ethan. But, yeah, eventually, and when Grace is, cornered by the goons, they have her at gunpoint, Ethan smashing through one of the windows of the Orient Express coaches and causing one of the goons to go flying out and just, well, be knocked out. Yeah, what a heck of an entrance for Ethan. Yeah, he managed to get in on board the Orient Express. So, yeah, then, eventually, and when taking down the other goons and trying to get the key, now that the two pieces are together, well, Gabriel stepping in, he did snatch the key, and Ethan going after Gabriel, leading up to them being outside of the express coaches, and when at one point there's an incoming tunnel, they duck, Gabriel trying to go after Ethan with a knife, and they're hanging off to the side. Just, yeah, that sequence where they're outside of the train, intense. Eventually, when Ethan does have Gabriel pinned down and was going to go for his neck with the knife, but, yeah, Jasper once again stepping in and telling Ethan to put the knife down and such. And this leads to Gabriel escaping. And yeah, he he escapes and hops on the back of a truck, and we see that, we find out that Gabriel, having sped up the Orient Express, making its way very shortly to this upcoming bridge where there's a lot of explosive devices attached to it, and Gabriel set the timer on it on his watch, and yeah. And, well, Ethan, he somehow managed to convince Jasper on trusting him and what they have to specifically do. Go by, give them an order on what to do specifically, the situation that they're in. Basically, yeah, where the train is heading, they've got to evacuate the people way in the back of the express. That's what happens. Meanwhile, yeah, Ethan catches up with Grace. They're right at the main express, and yeah, there's no driver, of course, because the conductor / the driver was dead, and they're trying to find a way to, turn off and, yeah, stop the train, but yeah, eventually it's too late. Also, Grace, feeling that, the key is lost and, thinking that it's her fault, but somehow Ethan got the key. He's got it. He swapped it with Gabriel, because, yeah, Gabriel doesn't have the key. He instead has a lighter, because, yeah, that's another thing. There was a lighter that Ethan lended to Grace very early in the film, something for her to remember him. But, yeah, and when seeing that lighter again, and we saw it a couple of other times in the film, just, yeah, up to when, yeah, Ethan swapped the key with the lighter to Gabriel, and when Gabriel finds out that he doesn't have the key, and the last we see of Gabriel in part 1, just, Ethan! And should have seen it coming where he had to let it out, because he was defeated for now, just, yeah, until we see him again in the next installment. But yeah, ultimately, up ahead, the bridge does end up exploding, and just in time, they manage to get the people way in the back of the coaches. Jasper and the other agent, yeah. Well, what happens next is, well, when and after the bridge explodes and the express makes its way, well, the express, they detach the express from the coaches. The Orient Express goes down and crashes, but yeah, unfortunately, the coaches didn't stop in time, and one by one, the coaches breaking off and falling down, and Ethan and Grace, that sequence where they're trying to, go from one coach to the next, and their lives at stake, and, avoiding obstacles, and even, say, a piano, Ethan trying to get Grace's trust, and for her to jump certain parts, just, ugh. That sequence right there, where they're jumping from one coach to the next, that was excellent. That was amazing right there. Another great, intenseful moment in this Mission Impossible film. Wouldn't you say so? Of course you would. And not to mention, when, that comes to an end, them, escaping from the coaches that are going down, they do get help when they're unable to, try to save themselves, and they're holding on for their lives. Paris steps in, grabs Ethan's hand, and yeah, she helps them, and yeah, right there, because this is where, yeah, she does redeem herself, and yeah, she technically becomes a hero, but yeah, only to lose consciousness, and I don't know, because, not to say no, she doesn't die, thankfully, because, yeah, because, she's very wounded, and Ethan attending to her, and Paris mentioning a few details on the submarine, and the name of the submarine. Ethan first thinks that it's the name of a city, but no, it's the name of the submarine that's linked with the entity, and, excuse me, that's where, yeah, Ethan has to go to, and where the entity is, in the submarine. Yeah. And, yeah, then Ethan, escaping once again, and with Jasper coming in, trying to take him in still, well, thankfully, and, yeah, thanks to Luther, he lended Ethan another parachute, he ignites it, and he flees from the scene, and, even, telling Grace that he has to do this alone. And, I mean, even though there's one parachute, yeah, he has to proceed on alone for now. So, yeah. The last time that Grace and Ethan would see each other for now, up to when Grace actually meets face-to-face with Kittredge, Grace not wearing a disguised mask this time, and what Kittredge said to Grace, meeting face to face, how he put it was kind of funny, but he made a point. And so when Grace meets face to face with Kittredge, she tells Kittredge that she wants to join IMF by explaining to him that, according to Ethan, Kittredge is someone that she can trust, and accepting to join, and, even, Luther, Benji, and Ethan, especially Luther, they made it very clear to Grace early on that, Grace can't be free and have a normal life, because she's in the same territory as they are with what they put their lives into, joining IMF and such, yeah. But no doubt that Grace will make a fine addition to IMF, and thus us seeing her, in the next installment. So yeah, then Ethan meets up with Benji briefly and lending him the key of the entity. Now the key is in safe hands with Benji, and the ending to this movie, we get some, technically it's some narration, but it's a direct message from Kittredge to Ethan, explaining to Ethan, what he's going to do next. And, because we see Ethan and Benji driving in the car, and, where Ethan's gonna end up next. And, of course, that being the submarine. Kittredge wishing Ethan good luck, and that, the world is at stake, and, Ethan's the only one that can save the entire world. And, oh man, that ending dialogue from Kittredge, his message to Ethan, and the way the movie ends, and the last shot we get is the submarine still underwater, and, man, what a great way to end it off. Not to mention when the title of the film shows again, but then, we see part 1 over, that was awesome, Yeah, just what a heck of a way to end off the second to last installment of the Mission Impossible franchise, Dead Reckoning Part 1, and until the final installment, which being the Final Reckoning. Oh yes. But Mission Impossible, the, 7th installment, / the second to last installment, Dead Reckoning Part 1. Excellent. Excellent. Another great installment, and this being the second to last installment, what more do I have to say? Everything about Dead Reckoning Part 1 from beginning to end, extraordinary, fantastic, yeah. The storyline, the plot, what our main characters, what they are getting themselves into, what they've gotten themselves into so far, new faces, old faces stepping in, most notably Kittredge, new faces from Grace, Jasper, the villains, Gabriel, Paris, whom, eventually Paris redeems herself, and also the White Widow, and her brother Zola, and the intenseful moments that happened in this film, the locations, the action, the suspense, the unfortunate loss of Elsa Faust, the intenseful moments, the suspense, and just oh my gosh, the music and score, and of course with Christopher McQuarrie's direction for this second to last installment of Mission Impossible, and the climax, everything about Dead Reckoning Part 1, fantastic. And I'm giving Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 10 out of 10 stars. Yes, 10 out of 10 stars for the 7th installment / second to last installment of Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1, 10 out of 10 stars. Yeah, excellent. And what about you guys? What did you think of the 7th / second to last installment of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 itself? Were you amazed how good this was? Any of you that got to see this in theaters? Is this one of your top favorite films in the Mission Impossible franchise? One of your top favorites, I should say. What were some of your favorite moments? Were you shocked and were you on the edge of your seats? And yeah, I mean, of course, with the sad loss of Elsa Faust, awesome moments that happen here and there. Tom Cruise's crazy epic stunt he does, the action, and then the sequences, like great sequences, great dialogue, great moments you didn't see coming, and just, yeah, and the whole thing of the entity, the main villains, just, yeah, and Kittredge's return, and what more to have to say, really, jeez. Just overall, what do you think of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 itself, and with what I've had to say, my review, and yeah, what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of the 7th / second to last installment of the Mission Impossible franchise / saga, Dead Reckoning Part 1. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I will see you guys in the next video / review. And with that, the Mission Impossible review marathon has come to a close. Yeah, man, it was fun doing this review marathon. Very, complicated and such, I guess you could say, because, yeah, watching all of these films and with the plot details and everything, but at the same time, it was still fun. It was really fun to having to watch / rewatch most of the films in this franchise, and, reviewing and talking about them, just, yeah. And yeah, I can't wait, and I'm sure the same goes for you guys, for the last installment, Final Reckoning. And until I do my review on that, yeah, stay tuned for that. So again, thank you very much for watching, take care, and until the, 8th / last installment of the Mission Impossible franchise / saga, The Final Reckoning. Peace out.